More. Because with over 200 vehicles, Gary's Auto Sales is the largest used car dealer in the area. Whether you want a car, a truck, or an SUV, you'll absolutely find what you're looking for at Gary's. Gary's has been in business since 1974. You can visit them online at Gary'sAutoSales.com, or you can give them a call at 724-626-8080. Gary's Auto Sales. Many miles, many smiles.
Your mental health is your most valuable asset. With 55 years of experience serving Western Pennsylvania, Chestnut Ridge Counseling Services is ready and able to assist you with all of your mental health needs. Offering over 20 specialized treatments, open access, and just-in-time scheduling means that you receive the treatment you need in a time-conscious fashion. Chestnut Ridge Counseling now offers telehealth, mental health urgent care with immediate access to a mental health professional with no appointment necessary. Call 724-437-0729. That's 724-437-0729 for mental health urgent care at Chestnut Ridge Counseling. Outpatient care options include individual, group, and family therapies, mental health and psychiatric evaluations, and medication services. Outpatient care and services are also available for patients under the age of 18, geared towards youth-centric problems and concerns. Take control of your mental health care with Chestnut Ridge Counseling Services. Call 724-437-0729 to set up an appointment or speak immediately with a mental health professional.
Are you interested in earning your degree online or finishing that degree that you've never completed? Take your career to the next level by considering Salem University. Salem University in Salem, West Virginia offers 55 fully online degrees and certificate programs. Learn more on how you can advance your career by earning your degree in business, education, criminal justice, information technology, and nursing. Salem has 4-week classes starting once a month. Contact Salem University today by dialing 844-462-9128, option 1, or visit salemu.edu to see if you fit within one of our 12 partnerships offering tuition scholarships.
Having Hicksonbaugh's Drugstore in Uniontown means reliability, quality, and service. Pharmacists Stephen Harper and Seth Miller fill your prescriptions, offer free prescription delivery, mail-out service, and gladly answer your healthcare questions. Flu shots, the new Moderna COVID boosters, plus Shingrix shots with your doctor's prescription are also available at Hicksonbaugh's. Call 724-437-2828. Hicksonbaugh's Drugstore, 304 Morgantown Street. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturday till 3, closed Sunday.
Your local station, WMBS.
The views and opinions presented by the host, guests, or callers on this program do not necessarily represent the positions of WMBS Radio.
The information you will hear is general information about health insurance. If you want specific health insurance advice, please call the Health Insurance Store at 724-603-3403. The host or guest may not be able to mention specific health insurance companies. You cannot change, purchase, or bind any insurance policy over the radio.
It's time now for Medicare A to Z here on your local station, 590 AM, 101.1 FM, WMBS. We have Tony DiRoma with us today from the Health Insurance Store in Connellsville. And Tony, kind of a crazy day. We had a crazy weather weekend with a bunch of snow that came our way yesterday. Now, cold temperatures this week. It's Inauguration Day. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. A lot of stuff being thrown at us this week.
Don't forget there's a national championship tonight.
Yes, so and my Ohio State Buckeyes are in. That's where I went to school at. So I'm certainly excited about that. I wore the dressiest red or scarlet shirt I could wear today.
Yeah,
so.
You did. And in honor of my mom, I guess I'll go ahead and root for the Buckeyes.
I appreciate that.
She was a Ohio native and a Buckeye, and I bleed blue and white. I'm a Penn State guy.
Okay.
But
sorry about your loss in the semis.
You guys always kick our tails.
Yeah.
we would have lost tonight anyways. So
well, we'll see what happens here this evening. But I know you have a lot to talk about. It's actually been a couple of months, I think, since we've had you in studio. We've been talking with Aaron over the last few months, and maybe want to give us an update as far as what's been new with you and what's been new with the Health Insurance Store in Connellsville.
Absolutely. Big news day, weather events, Martin Luther King. Don't want to not mention that, the significance of that, presidential inauguration. So I know there's a lot of other news-worthy stories out there. I haven't been on the road since I haven't driven since, I don't even know, Friday night, I guess, is the last time I went somewhere. So my poor wife's been heading to work. She works at the hospital in the bad weather, and I've sat at home all weekend and finally got out of the driveway, and here I am. So It has been a while, not only since I've been on the show, but I think the last couple of times I was on the show, Brian, maybe I had Bill, and so I was here and you weren't here.
Yeah, I
so
think it's been a while since you and I talked, maybe going back to October or so.
Feels like it's been a while. So before all the enrollments and all that jazz. So I think one of the biggest things, Aaron probably has mentioned it, but if he was here 2 weeks ago, it hadn't quite happened. Big happenings as far as he's been doing this radio show for a long time, but I think just about as long as he's been doing this, maybe not quite as long. Aaron's been having an article weekly in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, both the print version and their, what do they call, the PGE digital version, and that is done. Both episodes, the print and the online columns that he wrote and has been doing for years, they're both done. He's talked about it. I think I've been at the health insurance store for 4 years. I think he's talked about every year in our annual meetings the fact that maybe he won't continue that, but this time it happened, and so I think it's real important for folks to know now more than ever our social media pages, and we'll talk about the fact, obviously, that not everyone has social media and uses social media, but our Facebook page under the health insurance store and the Ask the Medicare Specialist page, both of those on Facebook, are going to be probably more important than ever, that folks realize that they can get the same information, the articles that he writes, he's going to keep writing. They just will not appear in the Post-Gazette, print or online anymore. Had a meeting with Aaron and our social media team last week. I know one of the things that's happening is he does intend, and it may have, if it didn't happen this week, it might happen next week, for simply to go to our website page, getyourbestplan.com, and they're supposed to be uploading the most recent and then archiving old columns that Aaron has written. So he got a lot of feedback initially last weekend. Matter of fact, he was emailing me. Here's someone that just wrote me an email and they say they don't do Facebook and they're concerned, get their name. So I had a spreadsheet and keep their emails and let's make sure that we don't lose track of them and all that. So I think if you're not using social media, but hopefully at least have the internet, then one way you could do it starting next week would be to simply go to the getyourbestplan.com, and we're going to do our best to make sure it's very visible. And I say we, I mean the social media team, because we have the ideas, they execute them.
Here's actually another idea just coming to the top of my head, and I was in some of those conversations last week as well with you guys, and we're actually going to put those articles on our WMBS Facebook page as well. I assume you guys probably have like an email group that you have as far as like a list of all the email addresses of the folks that work with you.
We do. We use some something, what do they call it, CRM. We have for all of our clients, we have all their data and everything that we would ever need on a weekly basis, but we haven't really done a lot with that over the years. Some folks, we never ask for their email address.
Because my thought was maybe send out like a group blast with that Ask the Medicare Specialist question. So basically any one of your clients would basically get it on a weekly basis. And again, that just kind of came to the top of my noggin right now.
No, any ideas? Yours. I really appreciate what you came up with as far as the station posting those articles, because obviously the people that are listening to the show are used to coming to your page, and it would be a great source of information. So yeah, anything is on the table. What that was one of the things. What about an email list that we might already have? And the truth is, I don't think that's going to be necessarily the key. So we'll figure it out. People need and want the information. They made it very clear. But just the cost and what goes into those articles that he's written all those years, it just seemed like it wasn't paying enough dividends right now. So those are done.
And certainly the change as far as folks really viewing traditional newspapers, the whole change there as far as the way people are consuming news these days, I think has certainly evolved a lot over the last 10 to 15 years.
Absolutely. So we need to be prepared to adapt, and this is going to be a big change, but we'll get the kinks worked out, and we'll make sure that people still are getting that information. So, you you said earlier Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and I think actually this is the third. So that's obviously obvious. We do this show on the third Monday of every month.
Correct.
So then
first and third Monday.
First and third Monday, right? So I think this is actually the third holiday that I've been here for this specific holiday, Martin Luther King Jr. I know I did it last year, and I think I said last year that it was my second time. So we're off today. The health insurance store, if you're calling there today, don't. You'll get a recording. We're not there, but here I am doing the show. So I've been at the health insurance store now it'll be 4 years in February. So that time has gone pretty fast, but I want to make sure, just to give a little bit of background, if you don't mind, and if I go long, cut me off. I think if I'm going to deal with somebody, my oldest daughter is now looking at a possibility of buying her first house, Brian, down in Monroeville or Penn Hills or somewhere down there, and I realized in trying to find a realtor that we wanted to work with that I actually care a little bit about who they are as a person and what they've done. Do you think that's a normal?
Yeah, I think so too. You want to have some background as far as if somebody's going to be making a recommendation for a home purchase and something where you're going to be having that home for maybe the next 30 or 40 years, depending on how long you're going to stay in the area. I think it's pretty important to make sure you know that person and trust that person.
Yeah, and so I assume that if I was shopping for health insurance, I would want to know a little bit about the people that I was dealing with and maybe what their background is. So I met Aaron in 2008. I've told the story many times. I think it's actually an interesting story. I'm going to spare the details because there's so many twists and turns in it. But obviously met him back in 2008, which was the same year that he opened the health insurance store. The background of that, again, we'll not get into it. But I did meet him when he very, very first came to Connellsville. The health insurance store was a concept, and we met and then went our separate ways. But we had always kept in contact. I admired and appreciated what he did, not only what the health insurance store ended up doing as a business, but Aaron's involvement in the community. He is a guy who doesn't just talk about things. He talks about things and then comes up with ideas. And if he needs to, he'll put his money where his mouth is and he'll make things happen. And so I appreciated that about him as a person. And so I kind of had always kept in touch with him all those years. And then it took 2020, the COVID year, which I think changed a lot of people's lives in many ways. That kind of changed my career path at that time. I was in my mid-50s, I guess I would have been, and realized that I needed something else to do. And Aaron and I kind of reconnected and got my licensing. And so, I'll have my 4-year anniversary at the health insurance store coming up in a couple of weeks. So
time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Time flies. And I've said it before, we talk about Medicare supplements, and I've actually asked Aaron this. I said, how long have you been on the radio? And it's been however many years. I said, so you go on the radio twice a week, and you've been talking about this stuff for years. It just kind of blows my way. Like, I'll be here in 2 weeks, and I promise you, before I come back 2 weeks from now, I'll be wringing my hands thinking, well, what am I going to say? Or
he actually, I think, started the show a couple months after he opened up shop in Connellsville, so it's been that long.
It's new. But the thing is, and what I've come to realize is you have the same conversations often with folks, but what you have to realize, and what I have to realize, in even though I've gone over this information, if you're just now turning 65 and going on Medicare,
it's newsworthy to you for the first time.
It's news to you, right? Absolutely. And then there's 100,000 different variations of a person's scenario. But something happened a couple of weeks ago. I was in an appointment, and someone asked a question, and you never know what question might be asked, right? And I gave an explanation, Brian, that I had never given before. And it wasn't premeditated. It was very organic, right? Someone said, I think it was in regards to a particular way that their Medicare supplement worked, right? And I gave an explanation. And then when I got home that night and when I woke up at 2 a.m, as I usually do with my brain thinking about something, I just thought about that conversation and what I had told to that person. And I realized there were ramifications beyond how I even used that illustration. So I've done this a couple of times. I can promise you it's never been on WMBS before because Aaron doesn't explain it this way. I don't know if he'd like it or not. Hopefully, I've used this scenario multiple times since with people new to Medicare, and even a couple times people that had plans that I use this to explain. So I'm gonna do something for the first time. It could be the greatest thing ever, or maybe it won't be. Maybe I'll never speak of it again. But I've actually I want your honest feedback.
Okay, that's fine.
Because you've heard this spiel, right? And so you're not.
I'll let you know how it is,
right? So supplements and Advantage plans, and there's two different. All that, and you've heard it explained all different ways. So here's my new way of explaining this. Okay, so we're gonna go to a restaurant, okay? And you're either going to order the buffet or what's the other option? You
just order off the menu.
Off the menu,
Correct.
a la carte, right? So Medicare supplements, I'll give you two different scenarios.
Okay.
If you go to the restaurant and you walk in and you see they have the buffet and you say, I'll take the buffet, you know that you're going to pay a higher price, right?
Correct.
Because it's like, X amount of dollars.
And you can eat as much as you want, and you can keep on going back as many times as you want.
Exactly. So to the person that has the Medicare supplement and doctors a lot, goes to the doctor a lot, needs a lot of tests, procedures, and whatnot, having the Medicare supplement would be the equivalent of having bought the buffet. And regardless of how many medical services you need, how many tests, office visits, doctors, all that stuff that you go to, you have the peace of mind of not worrying at the end of the day, the month, the year, that you've been billed a whole lot, right?
Because, and they aren't able to kick you out for too many trips to the buffet either, right?
Exactly, right. It's the buffet. I paid the higher price, but I can consume all I want. Now, have you ever brought somebody to a buffet, paid for the buffet? Maybe it was a kid, a child. Maybe it was, which sometimes they have a different price. Maybe it just was, my wife would be a good example of this potentially. I'll pick on her. Order the buffet, both of us, pay the higher price. I make a big plate of food. I eat my plate. And what do I say? Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go get more, right? I paid for the buffet. And what if my wife looks at me and says, well, I didn't really see anything up there that I liked.
I'm not that hungry
I'm
today.
not very hungry, right? And what I'm going to say, well, wait a second, I bought the buffet.
Yeah.
You've got to eat more. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not hungry. I didn't see anything there. So what's that the equivalent of?
It's
Go ahead.
basically going to say the equivalent of not having to go to the doctors, not needing as many procedures done throughout the course of the year.
Yep. Those are the people that after having a supplement for a couple of years might end up calling me and then ask me, and I think was the impetus. I think that's what actually happened in that very first time that I said it and had never thought of it. I'm like, well, it's like you have the buffet, but you're not very hungry.
Yep, correct.
So you're paying the higher price, but you're not consuming a lot of food, which is, in your case, the equivalent of I don't go to the doctor much. And so the beauty of the supplement would be, of course, as long as you're still sitting in the restaurant, right? If you decide that suddenly you're hungry and you want to go up and eat, they don't charge you more. So that's the gist of what I said to that person. It's like you're at a buffet, but you're not eating a lot. So you may feel like you're overpaying, but just realize that as long as you're still in the restaurant, if your appetite changes and you start consuming more food, which is the equivalent of needing more medical services, then you're not going to worry about the bill when it comes. Okay?
Probably rest easy because you at least know what the cost is going to be up front, and you're not going to be surprised down the road with other costs possibly popping up. And by the way, if you do have a question today, our phone lines are open, 724-438-4593, 724-438-4593, whether you want to talk about what Tony is discussing directly today or something else health insurance related. Tony will be here and we'll try to answer your question again, 724-438-4593.
Let's talk about buffets, right? Let's
Yes.
talk about eating. Well, but I mean, it's true because, like I said, it's just a different perspective. But really, to me, that analogy is true. So can we carry it further? And this is what happened as I went home that night and started thinking about this. I'm like, so is that really it? Was that a good explanation, or is that it?
I thought it was a good explanation.
Yeah, but there's more. But
Okay, go ahead.
Well, we have to think about it, right? So I think that made sense. And then the more I thought about this whole restaurant and buffet versus all that, and then I dawned on me, okay, well, what about Medicare Advantage plans, right? Part C of Medicare. So those that don't have original Medicare as their primary insurance and a Medicare supplement and a standalone drug plan as their secondary, perfectly valid strategy. We like it. Not everyone does it. As a matter of fact, more people in the country now have Medicare Advantage plans, and their enrollments are probably going to be up again this year. So that's a very viable solution, and we have thousands of clients that have Medicare Advantage plans. So what would that be like if we went to the restaurant?
Ordering off the menu.
Ordering off the menu. But even when you order off the menu, I'll give you 3 different scenarios, okay? You go to the restaurant, you don't order the buffet, you're going to order off the menu. Sometimes when you go to the restaurant, you're not real hungry. My youngest daughter, I love her. She always, we never ever made my kids order off the children's menu. By the way, no offense if you do. That just was the thing that my wife and I came up with. Was like, we're not going to, every time the restaurant said, do you want a kid's menu? And it's not because we're independently wealthy or whatever. We just said, no, we're going to let them order anything they want. So my youngest daughter is now 22. Her big thing was, and this is pretty good for a little, she either ordered French onion soup or a Caesar salad.
Wow. As a child.
Yeah. Sometimes both.
Yep.
But either one, I was like, well, I'm letting her order anything she wants, but what she's ordering isn't very expensive.
Correct.
Right? Because she doesn't eat a lot. So what do we have now? We have a person that's got Medicare Advantage. And lots of people say this. Well, I don't really go to I personally will go to the doctor if I think something's going to fall off. And I've taped it twice, and the tape,
It's still dangling a little bit.
It's still dangling. It's like, okay, I guess I better go. Had my episode a couple of years ago, right, where I passed out driving my car. Not a good thing to do. And I went to see my PCP, and he's saying, well, we need to schedule a visit. In a couple of months or whatever. I'm like, he goes, you haven't been here I think he said you haven't been here for 3 years. And I'm like, so we need to schedule a visit. And
At least you didn't say, I can see why something happened to you. You haven't been here for 3 years.
Well, he's a friend of mine. He had the right to do that. But I mean,
I could have got this before it happened.
Very possible. Although they never did figure out.
I know.
So,
I'm just giving
so
you
who
a
knows?
hard time.
I know. So, but he's like, well, you haven't, we need to schedule you for a office visit. And I'm like, but you haven't been here in 3 years, but I'm like, but I'm here now. And he's like, but Tony, this doesn't count. You need to schedule an office visit. So I did. But that's me. I mean, I don't doctor much. I try not to. And so in my opinion, a Medicare Advantage plan for someone like me might be a good alternative because I don't typically go to the doctor. I don't need the higher premium. I don't need the buffet necessarily, because I order off the menu and I don't even order expensive things, right? So that's one possibility. Sometimes, though, because we're still in the restaurant, bear with me, sometimes when we go in, we do want a meal, right? We want meat and potatoes and a salad and a dessert or whatever. There are plenty of things in those Medicare Advantage plans. So first of all, what's the equivalent of ordering off the menu? That's a $20 or a $10 specialist visit. That's $5 for your lab work. That's $50 for a trip to the, urgent care, right? Little inconsequential things about the equivalent of ordering an appetizer or a bowl of soup.
But it could, I'm sure at some point, though, it could add up if something happens, right?
Yep. If you need a lot of bowls of soup, yeah, I guess it could. But again, those are insignificant. Those are never really going to add up. What starts adding up is when you start ordering different things on the menu. So it's not the soups or the appetizers, but okay. So now you say, well, sometimes I go to the restaurant and I order a meal, meat and potatoes. Okay. Now we have the equivalent of some things on your Medicare Advantage plan that maybe cost $225. I needed an MRI, or I was hospitalized and it was $300 something, right? Or I needed an outpatient procedure, right? So now we have these things that would be like going to the restaurant, ordering off the menu, and eating a meal. Okay, still not buffet price, but we're paying as we go, and we're paying a reasonable amount of money, right? A couple $100 for this or that. And then what's the third thing you can do? And I've only ever done this once, but we know that sometimes when we order at a restaurant, it'll say market price.
Oh, correct.
Yep. One time in my life, I was feeling cocky down in Florida, working a different job, and I went to this very nice restaurant, and whatever I wanted, it said market price. I must have had a good day or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'll just take it. And then you find out at the end what it's going to cost. Or even sometimes you'll look and you'll see.
Now, if you were smart, you could have asked, well, what's the market price going to be when you ordered, right?
I know.
But you didn't care.
I didn't want to act like.
Yeah, you don't want to act
I couldn't afford. My dad had a saying one time, or he said it a lot, but I remember it. It's one of his favorite sayings, and it probably wasn't his, but he always said, if you have to ask the price, Tony, you can't afford it.
Yep.
So he taught me that when we went clothes shopping. He taught me that when we, whether you're looking at jewelry or even in a restaurant, if you have to ask the price, you can't afford it. So I wasn't going to ask the price, market price. I found out at the end. And then sometimes even the published price at a restaurant, right? You can see that it's surf and turf, it's filet mignon, it's going to be expensive. So there are those handful of things, and I usually break it down. I won't do it now in the interest of time. But if you have a Medicare Advantage plan, there's a handful of things, services that you may need that might be the equivalent of paying for the prime rib, the filet mignon, the surf and turf, and even a couple that I would suggest are market price because they're not set co-pays, but they're co-insurances, and they're typically going to add up to a fairly large amount of money. So that's the equivalent of going to the restaurant, ordering the surf and turf, or ordering that thing at market price, which you don't always do, but you occasionally might. And if you've got Medicare Advantage, then you might end up paying a decent amount of money ordering off the menu. So we got buffets. We either do or don't eat a lot. We have restaurants where we order off the menu, sometimes a little, sometimes a little bit more, and then we have those handful of situations. So
with market, I thought it was a pretty good analogy.
Anyways, if you come and see me, you may hear that explanation. If you've already heard it and want me to save you and spare you, then I won't. But it's just a different way to think about the same concepts that we talk about all the time. So
I thought it was good. Again, we're talking to Tony DiRoma from the health insurance store in Connellsville. You could reach Tony in his office, 724-603-3403. It's 724-603-3403. If you have a question here today, give us a call, 724-438-4593. That's 724-438-4593. And, Tony, obviously we discuss all the time different deadlines. Obviously, the normal Medicare open enrollment period ended in December, and we also had the open enrollment period for the ACH plans as well. Now, what options, as we do this show here on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, third Monday in January, what options are there for folks that maybe have a Medicare change? Are they able to make it right now? The same thing for open enrollment. Are there any other options there, or are folks pretty much stuck until next year unless they have a major life event?
No, well, yeah, you've touched on some of the important concepts. There's some that actually Medicare has some interesting rules about some enrollment periods where we're not even supposed to officially talk about them. So I don't want to do anything on a violation. But you're right. The main ones that we are allowed to talk about have both come and gone. We had the October 15th through December 7th, which was the annual enrollment, Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans, the ACA, the Obamacare, had 2 consecutive enrollment periods, both of which now are done. I felt pretty bad. Let's see, what's today? 15th, 16th. One day this past week, I literally had a gentleman that come in. We'll do appointments where possible, but we also, if someone walks into the health insurance store, Brian, we're going to do everything we can to meet with that person on the spot. I think tomorrow we go back to officially, because the big busy times are over. We go to a period where we'll have one agent every day that's scheduled specifically if someone does just walk in. We don't do it during our busiest time because it's just not feasible. But I had, so we're not officially doing that last week, but we did have a walk-in the one day, and I didn't have an appointment at the time, so I brought the gentleman back, and I was sad. He literally was there the day after the annual enrollment, the Obamacare annual enrollment had ended, and that's tough. I don't like to be the person to say if you.
Yeah, it's rough. You were here yesterday. We could have taken care of it.
Literally, and what he said. And I'm not the boss at the health insurance store, but obviously we hold each other accountable. And he said to me at one point, he said, well, someone told me a couple of days ago, basically that it was open enrollment, and it would have been. Yeah. And I said to him, I just want to be clear. I said, are you saying you called here and someone said it is, or you just, and it wasn't? Because honestly, I was going to have to just make sure that if
make sure your agents give the right info.
But be specific. It probably would have been someone calling to schedule, but I mean, we need to ask very specific questions, because yes, it was open enrollment, but also it was about to end. So, and he said no, it wasn't. You know what? He had some medications he was concerned about. He had a medical condition he was just diagnosed with, so there were some big issues there. I found a way to help him with the meds, and I gave him the best recommendation I could medically as well. So those are always, so obviously anybody could be about to turn 65. So if you're just turning 65 or just going on Medicare, you're in an open enrollment period. But all I can say for sure is, even if you're already in a Medicare Advantage plan or have a Medicare supplement, there is a good chance by calling in that there may be other enrollment periods that you can still take advantage of, like you said, through a special enrollment, or there's a lot of different paths there. Sometimes we do tell folks, though, that you have to wait, and there's nothing we can do.
But obviously, if somebody changes jobs, like we were just discussing this earlier, if you would go from like commercial insurance and then you lost your commercial policy and you needed to pick up something really fast, and that's definitely something you'd be able to do for somebody if they had proof of previous coverage.
Yep. Though, I'll point out, I've had a interesting couple of calls, interesting appointments and calls. Sometimes the information can be confusing. I had a lady who called the other day, and her situation was that she was just married. Okay. And if you go online, and she needed ACA, Obamacare, and if you read, well, what are some different special enrollment periods, you will read in there that a marriage, or sometimes moving, or the birth of a child. So they give you this list of special enrollment periods. So she happened to be calling during open enrollment, so she was safe, didn't realize it. But she said to me, well, I was just married, and so doesn't that give me a special enrollment period? And I said, let me ask you, you were just married, and congratulations and all that. And then I'm like, well, what insurance are you leaving, or what is, or when was the last time you had insurance? And she goes, well, it's been a while. I think it might have even been a couple of years. I know it was, I know it wasn't within the last 60 days that she had insurance. And people, have been confused by that before. They move to the area, and they'll call and they'll say, well, I just moved to the area, or in her case, I just got married, and so I know that gives me a special enrollment period. But what that doesn't do, Brian, is trump out the fact that if they haven't been insured in the previous 60 days,
that's pretty much the de facto if you had previous coverage, because if you didn't have the previous coverage, then you're not going to get that 60-day grace period.
So you can't just move here from Colorado, having lived there for 3 years, and move to Pennsylvania and show up and say, well, I live in Pennsylvania now, so don't I get a special enrollment period? Because as you do that application, once you get into the into the weeds there a little bit further, it's going to say, what was the last insurance that you had? And oh, by the way, they're going to probably require you to upload proof of it.
Now, you would be able to, let's just throw out a scenario here. Let's say somebody has a job, they lose that job, and then they decided to take COBRA coverage. And they were on the COBRA coverage. And then if they got married and came to you because they had the COBRA coverage, even though they didn't have that job, would that count?
Yeah, we have to. You're given it. There's all these different possibilities.
Yeah, I'm just
and all
throwing
these
some
different
things out.
combinations. That one I'd have to think of. Like, I literally have to write down what did you just, because what you can't do, this is confusing, is if you, in regards to COBRA, and so you gave that, and then you added another wrinkle, and then I had to think,
because I mentioned the fact you're talking about somebody getting married.
right. So which one outweighed which thing?
Correct.
Here's for sure what happens if you lose your work-based coverage and then enroll in COBRA. Okay. You can't just quit COBRA, create a special enrollment period
for yourself
to join.
You would almost have to wait for a COBRA period then to end,
or you don't enroll in COBRA. You enroll in the Obamacare first. But once you've taken COBRA, and we've had people that, I took COBRA. Now there's but again, there's always an exception to everything. If your employer was originally paying for COBRA and now they've stopped paying, there's detours that all these conversations take. But we certainly have run into the situation where someone took COBRA when it first was offered. There was no change in the cost of COBRA. They just got 3 or 4 months into it and realized that maybe they shouldn't have done that or didn't want to do that. So can I just quit my COBRA and get an Obamacare plan with the tax credit and the subsidy? So then it becomes a little more complicated at that point, and sometimes they end up having to wait until another open enrollment comes around.
So basically the answer would be possibly no in that situation.
Yeah. It's I do a Facebook page. This is a little bit scary, but it's true. I do a Facebook page of mostly Medicare agents, but they sell a lot of different, they all do, some of them do Obamacare and whatnot, like-minded individuals, right? And I follow this Facebook page for a couple of reasons. One, I just feel like you got to sharpen the tool, right? I got to continually be doing training, education, certifications, and doing research. And one of the ways that I do it is I like to follow this Facebook page of all these other agents around the country, and just to see, first of all, if they're asking a question that I think I can help, I want to try to help them out. Second of all, I like to see what situation presented itself to them, to see what other agents say the possible solution is, right? And the scary thing, Brian, is how often they get different answers, all from people who are licensed, all from people who do this for a living. But someone asked a question and they get.
Is it the fact that the agent's just not doing the research and going to try to figure out what actually is the right answer?
Sometimes, well, no, but what it is a lot of times is there's just a lot of different interpretations of the same rule.
Correct.
Right? And what I might think, I always will tell folks that when I'm advising them, this is my understanding of the rule that applies to your situation, right? This is what I believe. This is what I have experienced, or even this is what I know to be true.
Who makes the final determination? Like, let's say you go and meet with a client and you think you can get this to happen, and then for some reason you would submit it. Would the carrier come back and basically say, no, we can't actually do this?
So it could be a where CMS, which is Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that I believe that they had an enrollment period, but my understanding of that rule was wrong and that they denied it.
Okay.
I mean, it's a live and learn situation, but I'm just shocked by how many different scenarios people come to that group to post a question and how many
different
answers there are to the same question. So that's an eye opener. Now, sometimes I'm a little bit shocked at the question that's being asked because I don't pick on anybody in particular, but I'm like, if you're asking that question, I'm a little bit surprised that you're licensed. Some of the questions are just so basic that anybody
you're
really
surprised
should know
somebody
that.
wouldn't know the answer to it.
But then, like I said, you presented a situation and you gave a couple of they were Cobra, but then they got married, and there's all these different, and we do that. One of the things that makes me happy or glad that I work at the health insurance store, you've got people like Aaron, who's been in this business for many, many years, Jen's and Lonnie's and Bonnie's and Sadie. I'm there 4 years, and I'm finally not the least experienced person there, because we have and by experience, I don't mean just least tenured person, I guess I should say. We have Chelsea. We might talk about her a little bit later, depending on time, who's down in Forest Hills, and she's a young lady. She's actually probably closer in age to my daughters, probably in her early 20s, and she's newly licensed, and so she's building up her client base. And we all have different experience levels. I do it way less now than I ever did, but I am not afraid to excuse myself from conversation and say, you know what?
Yeah, we're going to go and check on it. It's probably a smart thing to do,
yeah,
too.
Or I'll just call Jen down on it, and I'll be like, listen. And I'm happy to say that sometimes they even will ask me for my opinion now. So.
No, it's a good thing to do, and obviously to make sure you have the right answer instead of just guessing to see if something's going to be right or work or not work.
Yeah, because so many things are cookie cutter, straightforward, 100%. People just have the wrong information or the wrong idea, and you just point blank and say, no, that is not how that works. This categorically 100% is the way that goes. And then there's everything in between. And even Aaron would admit it if he was sitting here. It's not like he's never walked out and said, hey, Tony, or hey, Jen, or hey, we do it with each other. And so you're dealing what's Mike Tomlin as a collective.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to take his advice these days.
Well, I know, but I mean, I listened to his press conference, collectively, individually, and collectively. So individually, we're all agents, but we're collectively coming to you in a unit, and so we get all the shared experiences that everybody in that building has, and that's comforting to know. So options are out there, some of which we can get into and some we can't. Special enrollments are absolutely out there, and there may or may not even be another type of open enrollment out there that's going on, and we just can't talk about it right now.
Again, we're talking to Tony DiRoma from the health insurance store in Connellsville, 724-438-4593. That's 724-438-4593. Tony, we have about just under 6 minutes left in hour number one. If there's anything else you want to try to squeeze in here before the top of the hour, and I know we have plenty to get to in hour number two as well.
Yeah, I think I don't want to go too deep. One of the things I definitely want to come back to, because I haven't had a chance in a while to talk about some of these changes in the Part D, the prescription drug plans for the Medicare people. I think I don't want to introduce it and then not do it justice, but we definitely need to have some conversations there. Let me tell you what we're seeing. We came through the annual enrollment period, so we've reviewed individually and collectively thousands of prescription drug plans for our clients, and I can now come back and say, this is what I've seen, this is what I expect to continue to see from the plans that are out there this year. In some ways it's a little bit easier, Brian. I'll just tell you, there are fewer plans available, and I'm not saying that's good or bad yet, but fewer plans available by far than there have been in any of my previous years. 2023, there were 26 prescription drug plans to choose from. I don't remember 2022. 23, I know there were 26. Last year, there were 20 different prescription drug plans, and this year there's 14 left. So, is that the blessing or the curse? I don't know. I know from our perspective, it makes it easier in some ways.
I think that's what Aaron has said in the past, too. I think there was a time, and a lot of it goes with just the normal health plans, too, where there might be 100 different plans out there, but maybe only 6 or 7 are plans that you even recommend to anybody.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll talk about that a little bit coming up. If we have time, we don't just do Medicare. Aaron is making a big emphasis, I know, for 2025 on life insurance. He's going to do a lot more in social media to try to bring awareness to that. We may or may not end up doing some sort of podcasting. He knows that it's not getting in here and coming to do the radio, I'm kind of getting comfortable with it, but now they're suggesting, well, maybe we should be doing these podcasts for life insurance, and I'm like, give me a break, So we'll
you guys
see.
actually had some pretty up-to-date studios that you put in a few years back.
He did. We don't have that equipment anymore. I think it may have gotten donated to some charity, but now if we're going to do it again, I guess Aaron's going to have to decide, are we going to invest in some equipment and start doing that? And then he's probably going to have to convince me to be willing to do it as well.
And I think one of the things, we mentioned some of the changes, we're also going to start sharing all of the programs that we do here and put them on YouTube as well for a lot of the folks that don't have Facebook. And then those will be available for archives on your website as well. So if some of the folks miss some of the shows that we have here, maybe you're listening on the radio and don't have access to Facebook and you want to go back and review some of that information, it'll be available not only on YouTube but on the Health Insurance Store website as well.
This is news to me, so tell me this again.
So our shows, the show that we're doing right now,
yeah.
We're going to put it up on YouTube after the program.
Okay.
And then that'll be shared on your social media site as well, on your page.
Yeah.
So and kind of acting as almost like a podcast type show.
Yeah.
It'll be available for an unlimited number of days, forever, until eternity, on your site, and we'll share those links up. We actually put the last 2 shows up. So if you missed the show with Aaron, either in December or the show we did 2 weeks ago, I know they're up on YouTube. I share those with your social media folks, and if they're not on your page, I think they'll be on your page fairly soon.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Okay.
You're like a social media star on all these different platforms these days.
Yeah, well,
right?
I've shared before.
The only thing we can't put you on anymore is TikTok unless they reinstate that, right?
I thought they did.
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, I know. Like I was with my nephew this past weekend, and he's 14. So and I don't have a TikTok account, but he was like, bummed a little bit. They took TikTok down. And he's like, oh, they put it back up.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on these days.
Well, my dad was a radio and TV personality in Altoona, and I'm not, and I never was, although I did used to work in radio growing up. I have a brother that did broadcast journalism, so, it's in the genes.
Yes, and you do a great job when you're here, for sure.
Well, thank you. You're probably your own worst critic, and I know I am, so hopefully people get some benefit out of these shows. That's what I hope for. That's what I pray for, that we give good information and that the right person hears it at the right time. So
I think the advantage, too, of archiving, and a lot of folks may not be available between 1 and 3 on Mondays to listen, but they can go back in the evening and at their leisure and be able to watch or listen to these programs on demand, which certainly is helpful as well.
That's what happens when you put stuff on the internet. So you don't put your stuff on the internet.
You don't get phone calls. We only have about 30 seconds left in hour number 1, so you can certainly take that phone call. We have CBS News coming up at the top of the hour. TJ will have the local district and statewide news coming up at 2:05, and Tony and I back around 2:15 for hour number 2 of Medicare A to Z with the Health Insurance Store in Connellsville. And Tony, enjoyed hour number 1 with you again.
Thank you, Brian.
That's Tony DiRoma from the Health Insurance Store in Connellsville. Stay tuned. CBS News on the way next. You're listening to WMBS Uniontown at 2 o'clock.
This is CBS News, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Michael Wallace. Donald J. Trump is president again.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
In his inauguration speech, Trump outlined his agenda for his second term.
The golden age of America begins right now.
The president's opening words were followed by some of his top goals.
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border,
allowing him to send troops, reinstitute the Remain in Mexico policy, halt all illegal entry as part of what he called a revolution of common sense. The president also promised to bring down prices and impose tariffs on foreign countries. And in a bow to American exceptionalism,
I will very simply put America first.
Linda Kenyon, CBS News, the White House.
CBS's Scott McFarland says President Trump has promised to issue pardons today for some of the people who stormed the Capitol 4 years ago.
600 rioters were charged with assaulting or resisting police. That includes with sticks, bats, poles, and chemical spray. There are also those accused of desecrating or stealing from the Capitol, of conspiring to overthrow an election.
CBS News political analyst Leslie Sanchez tells us President Trump has a chance to get a lot done in his second term.
This is the perfect trifecta, meaning control of the White House. He has the two chambers of Congress, and he can really move forward with a lot of campaign promises that he made that were critical for voters concerned about the economy.
Minutes before leaving office, former President Biden announced pardons for his siblings and their spouses to protect them against possible retribution by Trump. Earlier, Biden issued preemptive pardons to Dr. Anthony Fauci, retired General Mark Milley, and members of the House January 6th Committee. Former federal prosecutor Lori Levinson.
It's never been done before, and also because it usually involves an admission that somebody might have done something wrong. But these are very unusual times.
President Trump called the pardons disgraceful, claiming many of those pardoned are guilty of major crimes. Biden left the White House for the last time this afternoon. He just took off from Joint Base Andrews for California. Cold weather alerts are stretching into the deep south today. Robert Lott manages the Gateway Rescue Mission Shelter in Jackson, Mississippi.
We'll be operational until the end of the cold weather. We're having a daytime for them to come in during the day, stay warm, and then we'll have them coming in at night to stay at night.
The record cold across much of the nation will last through Thursday. This is CBS News.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get the parts and service you need fast from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Insurance. Forget the frustration and switch to Curtis Pharmacy. I'm Eric Cushy. We make it easy when it comes to insurance and prescription medications. Curtis Pharmacy takes all Medicare plans, including UPMC, Highmark, Cigna, and WellCare. Plus, we take the time to explain your coverage with the personalized service you deserve. Free delivery, compounding, compliance packaging, vaccines, plus lower costs on generics. We'll help you thrive in 25. Meds made easy. CurtisPharmacy.com.
Looking for a healthcare provider that puts you first? Montgomery Medical is now accepting new patients. We proudly accept Highmark Medicare Advantage plans and many other insurances to make care easy and accessible for you. As a locally owned family medicine practice, we treat every patient like family because you are family to us. With extended hours and a commitment to your health, we're here for all your needs, from checkups to the unexpected. Call today to schedule your appointment or a same-day appointment and join the Montgomery Medical family. Montgomery Medical, a family tradition of family medicine.
Atlanta hosts the College Football National Championship game tonight.
Ohio State and Notre Dame meet in the national title game tonight, and Fighting Irish head coach Marcus Freeman says a team-first mentality got them to this point.
It takes 120 guys saying, Lord, who cares how many plays I get? Who cares what type of individual praise I get? It's all for Notre Dame and to make sure we achieve team glory.
Team glory is also on the mind of Buckeyes head coach Ryan Day.
How do you leave a legacy is, to become your own legend. And there's some guys on this team today that, and I believe, will become legends in Ohio State history.
It's been a decade since Ohio State last won a national title. Notre Dame hasn't won one since 1988. Erica Herskowitz for CBS News.
One of the 3 Israeli hostages released under the new ceasefire deal says she has returned to life. In an Instagram post, Emily Damari thanked the protest movement in Israel that demanded the release of hostages. Damari and the 2 other women who were released are listed in stable condition. Michael Wallace, CBS News.
Now the local, district, and statewide news. Being brought to you by Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning, your Bryant dealer. Keeping you warm and cozy in winter and cool and comfortable in summer with a quality Bryant gas furnace or air conditioning system. And now the news.
Good afternoon. It is 2:05. 2:05, mostly cloudy, and 11 outside of our Davis & Davis Attorneys at Law Studios. Injured, call today for your free consultation, 724-437-2799. Your local station, 590 AM, 101.1 FM, WMBS. I'm TJ DeStefano. Sports and weather follow the news. We have school closings and delays already coming in for tomorrow, so we will give you what we have so far. Uniontown, they will be on remote learning tomorrow, as well as Albert Gallatin. The Head Start of Fayette County is closed for tomorrow. California area, they'll be on a flexible instruction day. Jefferson Morgan, Southeastern Green, Central Green, and West Green, they're all on 2-hour delays tomorrow. Monongalia County schools in West Virginia are closed tomorrow. Charleroi, they'll be on a remote learning day. Ringgold, remote learning tomorrow. Mount Pleasant, they're also on remote learning. Flexible instruction for Southmoreland, and remote learning for Hempfield and Jeanette. And again, that is the list as we have right now, and we will continue to update those throughout the rest of the day, tonight and tomorrow, and we will have a complete list on the WMBS Facebook page later tonight. California Borough Police are asking for the public's help in finding a wanted man. Officers said that Michael Bowman has an active arrest warrant and is known to spend time in the California area of Washington County. Bowman has a large tattoo on his neck. Anyone who sees him is asked to call 911 and asked to speak to California Borough Police. Bowman should not be approached. Governor Josh Shapiro has ordered flags to fly at half-staff in honor of State Representative Matt Gergely, who died Sunday. Gergely, a Democrat who represented the Mon Valley, died weeks after suffering an unspecified medical emergency. Shapiro ordered United States and Commonwealth flags flown on all Commonwealth facilities, public buildings, and grounds to fly at half-staff immediately. The flags should remain at half-staff until Sunday, or till sunset of the day Gergely is interred, which has not yet been announced. With Gergely's death, it leaves the State House deadlocked at 101 to 101 until a special election is held to fill the seat in the heavily Democratic Pittsburgh area district. House Democrats won a one-seat majority in November's election. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is awarding Moderna $590 million to speed up the development of bird flu vaccines. Here's Lisa Carton with more.
Moderna's award includes a vaccine to protect against bird flu. The funding adds to the $176 million HHS gave Moderna in July and will also assist in paying for late-stage development, licensing, and clinical studies. Dozens of states have reported confirmed cases of bird flu in cattle, poultry, cats, and even humans. I'm Lisa Carton.
WMBS time is 2:08.
439-2323. For 24-hour emergency service, call us when you need. We're Fayette's Heating and Air Conditioning, your service company.
Be prepared for bone-chilling winter weather. Have Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning install a Bryant high-efficiency furnace in your home to replace that old worn-out system you now have. Choose Bryant's Plus 90 gas furnace or other quality heating system to keep yourself and your family warm and toasty this winter. Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning will also keep your present furnace running at peak efficiency with their 15-point safety check and cleaning. Call Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning today for your appointment. 724-439-2323. That's Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning, your Bryant dealer, Route 119 north of Uniontown, located near Laurel Mall.
Call Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning, 439-2323, 439-2323, 439-2323, 439-2323.
In sports, we have the Penguins' 7-game road trip continuing tonight. They'll visit the LA Kings. The Pens are 19-21-8 and have 46 points. We'll have the action tonight on WMBS. The pregame is at 9:30 with face-off at 10:30. Also tonight, the College Football National Championship. Notre Dame takes on Ohio State in Atlanta. That game kicks off at 7:30.
The local district and statewide news has been brought to you by Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning, your Bryant dealer. Route 119 north of Uniontown, located near Laurel Mall. Phone 439-2323.
The Weather Watch is being brought to you by State Farm agent Nathan Ferguson. Call Nate at 724-438-7611 for life, home, car insurance, and more. Get a free quote now.
The cold weather advisory in place until 1 on Wednesday afternoon. Cloudy 13 this afternoon. Partly cloudy 1 above the low tonight. And mostly cloudy and 14 tomorrow. Right now, it is mostly cloudy and it's 11 outside of our Davis & Davis Attorneys at Law Studios at 2:11 on this Monday afternoon. I'm TJ DeStefano. Up next, hour 2 of Medicare A to Z with Tony DiRoma on WMBS.
The Weather Watch has been brought to you by State Farm agent Nathan Ferguson. Nate is there for you. Call 724-438-7611 for life, home, car insurance, and more.
Looking for a healthcare provider that puts you first? Montgomery Medical is now accepting new patients. We proudly accept Highmark Medicare Advantage plans and many other insurances to make care easy and accessible for you. As a locally owned family medicine practice, we treat every patient like family because you are family to us. With extended hours and a commitment to your health, we're here for all your needs, from checkups to the unexpected. Call today to schedule your appointment or a same-day appointment and join the Montgomery Medical family. Montgomery Medical, a family tradition of family medicine.
Don't settle for a meal, go for an experience. DeMarco's Bistro and Cantina is your destination for lunch, dinner, drinks, and more. DeMarco's features not only a dining room and patio, but also a 2-story bar for your eating and drinking pleasure. Daily lunch and dinner specials means the options will never get old. Get wings on Mondays or pick up a taco on Tuesdays. Wednesdays and Thursdays are even better with steak and chicken parm. DeMarco's updates their Facebook regularly, so keep an eye out for all the newest specials and delicious deals. For those adults looking to enjoy a mature experience, apply for a membership at Styx Cigar Bar. It is the place to be. With more than 35 bourbons and craft cocktails and 50 cigar options, you're sure to find something that suits your taste. DeMarco's Bistro and Cantina is open Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., Saturday 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. For more information on specials at DeMarco's and upcoming events, visit DeMarco's on Facebook or call 724-438-1611.
Does your car sound like it's saying, "Trade me in, trade me in," every time you start it up? Well, go to Ford of Uniontown and trade it in. That's right, your Uniontown Ford dealer is ready to assist you with a new or pre-owned car, truck, or SUV purchase. Ford of Uniontown has all the deals, all the inventory, and they are ready to deal. It has never been a better time to buy a Ford. Service is their top priority. No matter where you purchased your Ford car or truck, Ford of Uniontown will be happy to service it for you. They offer Ford-trained technicians, Ford-certified parts and service, 1-year, 12,000-mile parts warranties, and new state-of-the-art service equipment. Call or stop in today to see the hometown service of Ford of Uniontown, Route 40 West across from Applebee's. So listen to your car the next time you hear it say, "Trade me in, trade me in." Ford of Uniontown, Route 40 at the top of the hill.
You can go to Big Box Medical Office.
Now serving number 3,943.
Or,
hi, come on in. How are you feeling?
when you see doctors Paul Hartley and Mary Beth Riley, plus nurse practitioners Tara Bozek, Jessica Reckart, and Stacy Morris, you get one-on-one personal professional health care serving the area for over 3 decades. If you're looking for a primary care doctor, call Doctors Hartley and Riley at 724-437-1109 or online at ppcp.org. Or
serving number 3,944.
Having Hicksonbaugh's Drugstore in Uniontown means reliability, quality, and service. Pharmacists Stephen Harper and Seth Miller fill your prescriptions, offer free prescription delivery, mail-out service, and gladly answer your healthcare questions. Flu shots, the new Moderna COVID boosters, plus Shingrix shots with your doctor's prescription are also available at Hicksonbaugh's. Call 724-437-2828. Hicksonbaugh's Drugstore, 304 Morgantown Street. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturday till 3, closed Sunday.
Your local station, WMVS.
The views and opinions presented by the host, guests, or callers on this program do not necessarily represent the positions of WMBS Radio.
The information you will hear is general information about health insurance. If you want specific health insurance advice, please call the Health Insurance Store at 724-603-3403. The host or guest may not be able to mention specific health insurance companies. You cannot change, purchase, or bind any insurance policy over the radio.
Hour number 2 of Medicare A to Z on this Monday afternoon. Tony DiRoma joining us from the Health Insurance Store in Connellsville. Brian Morozak along with you here on WMBS. And Tony, we touched on a lot of different areas in hour number 1, even had some comparisons to buffets and ordering off the menu in relationship to health insurance. I thought it was very informative and a lot more to get to here in hour number 2.
Yep. I don't know if that'll end up being my signature piece or not.
I liked it.
It's a work in progress. And,
you liked it. I appreciate that. I've actually used it. Like I said, organically, I did it one time, and then I tweaked it a little bit and worked on it and expanded upon it. I've done it actually in a few appointments recently. So unless Aaron listens and say that's the dumbest thing I ever heard, don't ever tell my, then
or you have somebody just sitting there asking you, what did you say again? What does this mean? I'm not understanding.
Well, what did I just say to Bill? Bill in the hallway, I saw him and he was saying something about his thing. I said, Bill, you got the buffet, man. You bought the buffet.
Now, did he understand?
Yeah, I don't know. I said, well, if you listen to hour number 1, you bought the buffet. So I don't know if he did or not. But
he just went along with it, right?
It worked. I mean, to me, it just works.
I liked it. I liked it.
It's either corny as all get out or brilliant. I'm not sure. Time will tell.
So what do you want to discuss here in hour number 2?
Definitely want to start off, with the Part D, the Medicare prescription drug plans. So for those who are on Medicare, Brian, who are not in a Medicare Advantage plan, getting their prescription benefit through the plan, meaning they either have original Medicare or hopefully, if they're a client of ours, we would like to see them have original Medicare, a Medicare supplement or a Medigap policy, and a standalone prescription drug plan. That is gotten a facelift in a couple of areas for 2025. They've been discussed here. We can touch on them, but I just kind of want to bring a couple of points home now, because we've gone through the annual. So, if we're talking about changes in September or October, you have thoughts or opinions on what might happen going forward. But now here we are, having gone through the annual enrollment period. Now we've done thousands of prescription drug reviews for our current clients, and so now here's kind of some unofficial data, I guess you would say, things that I've noticed, and things that are related to these changes that went into effect in 2025. First of all, and I touched on this at the end of last hour, there are only 14 plans remaining in 2025. So if you are in need of or currently enrolled in a prescription drug plan, they call that Part D. There's only 14 of them left.
I consider that a positive, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and honestly, it was something that we, based on, again, if we go back to September or October, and we knew the Inflation Reduction Act had been making changes to these plans, and we knew what some of the new rules were going to be. Trust me, Aaron and I both told a lot of people, including listeners of the show, that one of the things that we expected to be different in 2025 is there will be fewer plans to choose from. In some ways, maybe that's good. There's a potential negative to that as well. But when the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a piece of legislation that had been passed several years prior, is getting phased in year by year, and we'll talk a little bit about the big change that's going to show up in 2026, even though we just started 2025. These changes didn't happen all at once, right? There were changes to the way insulins would have to be covered on plans, and then there were changes this year to the elimination of something called the donut hole, and for the first time ever, a cap that was put on the maximum out of pocket that anyone could pay. And the fact that for the first time there's a payment plan that some people can enroll in, which is, we won't get into that here, but it's something that probably won't be highly recommended by us, but certainly could be discussed by any of the agents at the health insurance store. So a lot has happened, a lot of these changes, but again, the changes don't all happen at once. So end of the day, what did we see? 14 plans, and I would estimate that, Brian, again, this is not an official statistic, I would say 95% of our clients, or 95% of the people whose plans we reviewed, whether they're our client or not, probably ended up on one of 3 different plans. So of the 14, I'm going to say 95% are probably on one of 3. There's another couple of percent that in certain situations would have ended up on a fourth plan, and then I honestly don't know who's enrolled in the other 10.
And that was kind of the way it always was before, where there were more than 14 plans to choose from.
Yeah, so it's definitely different. Again, in some ways, it makes it easier for us because you don't have maybe 3 or 4 plans that are throw a dart, as to which one you might enroll in, and then if someone wants a solid reason on why would they pick one over the other, maybe there wouldn't have been much of a reason. Now you can get there pretty quickly and concretely. You know what I mean? It's not there's not nearly as much debate now as to which one you should be on, because it's probably going to be pretty clear. And again, most people are on one of 3 different plans.
I wanted to touch on real quick, too, the elimination of the donut hole, because that was something we always used to hear about in the past, about folks getting stuck there, having to pay more money for certain periods. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so generally the donut hole was perceived as a negative place. It was the official name for it, I think, was the coverage gap, but they nicknamed it the donut hole. And so essentially, in previous years, what would have happened is, for the most part, even if you took a higher price medication, for most of the year you might have had a pretty reasonable co-payment on it. You may or may not have had a deductible, but even if you had a deductible, once you met your deductible, you probably had a pretty reasonable, let's say $42 to $47 copay, even if it was a retail $600 a month medication. Okay, and then, depending on what other medications you took and when you started taking that one and what the price was, there may have been, and for most people it was in the fall. If you were on one medication, it was probably sometime in September, maybe August or October, somewhere in that range, that you went to pick up your medication, and instead of $47, it was $150. Okay, and then if you weren't aware of what was happening, you might have had a little meltdown and come to realize that you were in the donut hole, where in the donut hole your responsibility was 25%. So hypothetically, we had a $600 a month medication, we had a $47 copay that went to $150, and so that's what was happening. Now, I've also seen, and numerically it's totally possible, that some people actually were paying less for their medications in the donut hole. And again, we won't go there, but I'm telling you that even though it was generally perceived to be a negative, it wasn't always a negative. Okay. But the big picture is, okay, donut hole bad, right?
Yes.
Donut hole bad. All right, so now it's gone. And it's gone because of the changes in the Inflation Reduction Act. But what you have to realize is, when these new rules went into effect, the prescription drug companies also had the opportunity to decide to change the way that they were going to cover your medications in light of the new rules, right? I mean, that's you can put a restriction on somebody, which is what this did, but also those companies now get to respond. One of the ways that some of the companies responded, one of them in particular, no longer offers prescription drug plans in 2025. So there's a well-known company who had always had prescription drug plans. In 2024, they had 3 of them. And once they saw the new rules, guess what they said?
They probably can't afford to be able to do it.
Yeah. See ya. We're out of here. We're done. And so some of that happened. Other companies, I can think of one off the top of my head that had 3 prescription drug plans in 2024. They have 1 in 2025. Another one that had 3 has 2. So we went from 26 down to 20, and then from 20 down to 14. So we have 6 less plans even to choose from this year in 2025 comparing to last year, 2024.
Also, are you able to give just a little bit of background information for some of the folks that maybe aren't that aware of the Inflation Reduction Act, why it was put into place, and exactly how it works for everybody?
Well, it was put into, I think it was actually voted into law, and it was either 2022 or 2023. And it was a piece of legislation. It was passed during the Biden administration. Ironically, we're in the middle of changing administrations as we speak, but it was a pretty historic, in my opinion, one of the more significant pieces of legislation that was passed during that time. not passing judgment on it as to be good or bad, because honestly, there's things about it that I think have helped people, and unfortunately, there's things about it that I see every day that we have people that are paying more for their medications under the new rules than they would under the old rules. And again, any of these things can be explained and expanded upon. This isn't probably the right place to do it, but I can tell you with 100% certainty, some things have unintended consequences. And so by and large, no politician ever passed a piece of legislation, I'm sure, that they thought was bad for people. But in reality, we all know that in the business world, if you put a restriction on somebody, then they have the opportunity to respond to how they're going to play based on the new rules. And, some people...
Now, are you guys actually seeing this as a general positive across the healthcare industry as far as in relationship to prescription drugs? Or you see a lot of this as they only are really impacting maybe 10 to 15 more common drugs, and a lot of the ones that folks get on a regular basis still aren't really helped by this much?
See, what you're talking about is something. Again, there have been multiple pieces of this thing that have been phased in over multiple years. The one you're actually touching upon is something that we won't really see how that plays out until 2026, because there were a handful of medications, and there's going to be more this year that come under review, to where the government is basically negotiating the price with the manufacturers. I was just reading an article this morning of what this particular company of a medication, they got 3 medications all in the same category, and that are supposed to be in the next batch that come under negotiation, and already they're posturing and they're not happy. But there are a handful of medications. I think the number was 10, but I'm not 100% sure that ended up being the final number of medications that now have gone through negotiations on the pricing, but that doesn't even get phased until 2026. So we'll see next year what impact that had. And it's a continuing process.
Yeah, still a lot of moving pieces there.
And again, I don't know how much of that, not to do politics, how much of that is going to be continued and how much of that does it have to be. I'm not going into the weeds there on an opinion, but so again, the changes that were made through the Inflation Reduction Act as they apply to the prescription drug, the line I've said many times is you can't create winners without creating losers, and I don't know if that is perfectly accurate, but it's how I feel. Some people have done better because of these changes, and other people point blank are actually paying more for their medications this year than they would have last year when the donut hole existed and the donut hole was supposed to be bad. So you eliminated something, but it didn't work out for everybody. It just won't. For example, on the negative, if I had to give one, I had 2 or 3 folks over the past week. First one actually sent me a letter, and then I had a couple of phone calls shortly thereafter. And as soon as I got the call, I knew what they were going to say. There has been a program that not just me, but we have put a lot of people in over the past couple of years for a particular medication called Xarelto. Okay, Xarelto is one of those $600 a month tier 3 medications. And for the past several years, there was a program through Janssen, I think it was called through Janssen Select, to where it didn't start until April of every year. But if after April the 1st, your cost of your medication of Xarelto exceeded $85, they would give it to you for $85. No ifs, ands, or buts. The only requirement, having nothing to do with income or anything else, was, are you paying more than $85 a month for your Xarelto? So what happens is, to the people in January, February, or March, maybe they were meeting a deductible, maybe they had the $47 set copay. You still had to experience all that. But if basically at the point that you would have gone in the donut hole, and Xarelto would have gone from 47 to 150, certainly more than 85. You go online,
go back,
go online, fill out your information, and within a couple of days, they would have shipped you a 90-day supply from Wegmans Pharmacy, and the program was through Janssen Select. And I had a lot of people that were able to stay on Xarelto year round because they knew once they weathered that initial deductible and the moment that they switched from the 40 whatever dollar copay to the 150, they could start getting it without going to Canada, without doing anything a little more extreme, which some folks do.
Yep.
It was real simple. It's Wegmans, shipping from the United States of America, and it was seamless, painless, and anybody that was paying more than $85 got it.
Are you guys starting to see this with more than just that prescription, for example?
That one was unique.
Okay.
But guess what happened? Guess what letters people have already gotten in 2025?
That it's going to be
gone.
Gone.
Yeah. Gone. Because why? What do they say? Because there is this new rule out there from this piece, Inflation Reduction Act,
Yeah.
that no one paid it. And that's what they literally used.
As
and
an
maybe there
example
was
for
more
it,
to
yeah.
it than that. I don't know. But they're literally saying because of that program, we're no longer going to offer this program. We still help folks every day with things like PACE and PACE-Net. We still have manufacturers that have patient assistance programs. Sometimes you can get your medication for free. Some people do use the Canadian and the international options. There's GoodRx's, there's Blueberry Pharmacies, there's Cost Plus Farm. There's options that folks have, right? But one of them, this program from Janssen, used the fact of this Inflation Reduction Act being in effect as the reason that they would discontinue the program.
What's your gut feeling as far as what's going to be occurring next year going into 2026?
My gut feeling, am I feeling it depends.
Yeah.
Am I feeling optimistic or pessimistic? I mean, I would hope that the retail cost of some of these more expensive meds has been brought down. I mean, and we've had people on this show. This whole thing of what's the retail cost and what that really means, honestly, it's above my pay grade because I've had people on the show with me to explain it from the pharmaceutical side of what we call retail and how that isn't.
Yeah, I mean, you actually see some. I mean, I know for me personally, like you go and you pick up your drugs, and if it's not one of the, main, drugs that are like common drugs, you see just absolutely crazy retail prices that show up on the, pharmacy stuff. I'm seeing like $15,000, $20,000. It's just like, and who's going to pay that on a regular monthly basis?
Now, I will say, as it relates to the Inflation Reduction Act, I'll try to pull out some of the positives. And the big one would be that there is in 2025, and I think this figure is going to adjust annually, but in 2025, there is a cap. There is a maximum out of pocket for a hard cap on the most anybody can pay out of pocket for all of their covered prescription meds. I got an email. Wasn't thinking of it. I got an email this weekend from a client of mine that I had put on a plan just a couple of months ago. And this speaks to this point. He emailed me and he said, hey, explain my plan to me now because I just was prescribed a medication and when I went to pick it up, it was $1,000. I'm like, okay. Come to find out that the medication that he was prescribed is not on his plan's formulary. So that's an important concept to understand when we say there's a $2,000 limit or a $2,000 cap on the most that anyone will pay out of pocket. Two big things. First of all, some people will not even pay the $2,000. Okay, it depends on the way your plan is structured, and it's too much to get into right now. But basically, what I've explained, and I'll go this far, I would explain it as there's two different calculators. There's a calculator that is programmed to calculate the $2,000 out of pocket, but that calculator is not necessarily programmed the way that your prescription drug plan is. And ultimately, it's when the official calculator says that you will have or would have paid $2,000 out of pocket. Whatever you have paid out of pocket to that point on your plan, you're still done.
Yeah.
So some people, when I talked about the fact that there's 3 plans, what worked for quite a few people, not everybody, but what worked for a lot of people this year is there was a particular plan out there that was on the high side price-wise, the monthly premium, okay? But depending on the medications you took, you might have paid, let's just say it was a little bit over $100 per month for the plan. So that's $1,200. But because of the way that plan was structured, you might have only, when I say only, take it with a grain of salt, you might have only paid $400, $500, $600 out of pocket, probably $400 to $500 for all of your medications. And so the $1,200 out of pocket essentially for the premium plus another $400 to $500 puts you somewhere $1,600 to $1,700.
And a lot of that stuff's not easy to figure out, even for folks that might even have like commercial plans. And you look at just normal health coverage where this person, you have a individual deductible, then you have your family deductible, and it's kind of, I think, similar to what you're seeing here with the prescription drugs.
What's happening with that plan, though, Brian, is even though they've only put $400 of their own dollars outside of the premium, setting that aside for a minute, the cost of their medications for the year might have only been $400 or $500.
Okay.
Because the official calculator, the one that tells you when you hit 2,000, when it was saying you were at 2,000, if you've only put out $400 or $500, then you're still done.
Okay.
Okay. And then now we need to go back in and add in the $100 and a couple of dollars that you were paying for your plan, and you still are looking at your projected out of pocket for the year being maybe 16 or 17 versus, let's say that there's a plan that doesn't have a premium, and there is one, and there's a lot of people that have it, but the way that plan is structured, as far as it would have related to the one expensive medication, right, it might be programmed for that one medication the same way that the official calculator is. So what I'm saying is, no, you didn't pay anything for your monthly premium, but you might actually truly put $2,000 out of pocket for your
I
meds.
gotcha. Yep.
And so sometimes and again, it's a case-by-case basis. Some people came out better by paying the higher premium and getting the lower cost of the meds, and other people not.
I think that's why it's important for folks to come and talk to you guys, because when they go and meet with you for a consultation at the beginning of the year, if they're just getting on Medicare for the first time and looking at different options as far as prescription drugs, you guys can kind of do those calculations for them, because you'll go in, you'll ask them for a drug list, you'll find out what they're taking, and can give them probably a pretty good estimate as far as what their cost is going to be over the course of a year.
Yeah. And so the email that I got over the weekend, I'm real curious to see how that goes. I had a suggestion. Now, obviously, this is a part of what we do. So this fellow who's a client of mine, I put him on a plan in 2024. It was the correct plan. He took 2 generic medications, and so clearly he was on the best plan. Now here we are, it's only January, and he's saying, I went to pick something up, it was $1,000. What do? I checked the formulary. Guess what? I have to email him back and say, unfortunately, and I'm not blaming the doctor, but he prescribed a medication for you that's not on your plan's formulary. I also said, clearly I'm not a doctor. My opinion is that potentially this medication, which is in the same class of drugs, is on your plan's formulary. So can you
check and find out that's going to work
have
for
that
it
conversation? Too. Yeah, I have a couple of people in my life that are pharmacists that probably wish that they didn't know me, because I'm known for.
You're probably making a lot of phone calls, right?
Yeah. Hey, I have this client and they were prescribed this, and before they go to their doctor, what do you think might be alternatives that they can come back with? So. Things like that happen. We're there. It's one of the advantages of dealing with the health insurance store. Is there where we have people there Monday through Friday, answering your calls, following up, helping you with billing issues. Having a situation like this where he's now prescribed a medication, it's not covered. He doesn't probably know why. It was $1,000, but the answer was that it's not covered. And now what do we do? Not just telling him, now we need to go to the next step. I need to work with him until we find something that's covered. He might end up spending $2,000 for the year because it's a pretty expensive class of medications. But right now it's not covered, and he's going to pay the full price, and that's probably not going to work either. So.
Again, we're talking to Tony DiRoma from the Health Insurance Store in Connellsville. If you have a question for us this afternoon, 724-438-4593. That's 4593. And I know, Tony, we spent a good deal of time talking about prescription drugs. Anything else you want to leave us on there before we transition?
Sometimes when I when I come on and I start talking about it sounds like a lot. All I can do is encourage you. If you have questions about this, everyone's situation is unique and different. If you sit down, give us the opportunity to deal with your specific situation, we're gonna come up with some ideas and suggestions. It just seems so crazy when I start talking about it, but once you boil it down to what's your specific situation, we can always make light and figure it out.
I know you wanted to touch on social media as well. We had discussed at the top of the program the Ask the Medicare Specialist group, and posting some of Aaron's weekly columns would now be online, not only through that group, but also through your website and our Facebook page, looking at some other methods to get that out. But you guys really stay busy on that Ask the Medicare Specialist group, not only with some of the columns of your Feel Good Fridays, a lot of advice from Aaron.
Yep.
And the other cool thing that you do is you always answer people's questions. If anybody has something kind of like the radio show, if they hear something today and then they think of another question on a random Wednesday and they post the question to the group, whether it's Aaron or whether it's another one of the specialists, are always there to kind of help.
Yep. I mean, if you look at it, a lot of the articles that Aaron writes are based off of questions
Correct.
that people asked him. Like I said, there's only so many different ways to explain this, but then everyone's got their version and their situation. And when people ask us the questions, it gives us a great opportunity, because we always are going to encourage you and discourage this from happening. Actually, your situation is your situation. We talked about Feel Good Fridays. I want to highlight a couple of those, maybe recent ones, Cliff Notes version. Tips, Tricks, and Truths. Jen Shaney just did a tip, trick, and truth the other day. And I, the takeaway from it was, and I've, talked about this before, but she just wrote on this one. The worst thing you can probably do is do what your neighbor or your friend or your relative did.
Because everybody has a different circumstance and situation.
Right. By blind luck, it might end up being the right thing, but it's the worst reason to make a decision is just because someone else that you knew did it. And Jen had written about that recently, and so I like to call out the Aaron's newest feature is now client spotlights, where he wants us to, my first one will be there this week. So I had real good clients of mine that I've kind of walked them through Obamacare and the Medicare and the life insurance, and now I have their son on a policy. We've built that relationship and that rapport, and they happened to come in this past week. I think, it was because the Marianne, the wife, was turning 65, and so I put her on a plan, and I said, well, you guys, everyone else I think has done this, but I haven't done one yet, and I'm probably going to get in trouble. Will you take so we did a picture in front of the banner, and it'll run this week, and just calling attention to I think they call that one client spotlights.
Nice.
So finally I'll have one. The Feel Good Fridays, the Ask the Medicare Specialist page, Aaron's advice, I think is the other one. So much information there that you can go at your leisure and read about and scroll through. As far as social media, like I said, the Feel Good Fridays, these are good too, because just like I go to social media pages to read what other agents are asking, if you're reading the Tips, Tricks, and Truths, if you're reading Feel Good Fridays, you may see a situation that's very similar to something you're experiencing and how we took care of it. Now, that article, that little tidbit, is not to be substituted as 100% the advice or the way you should go. We still would want you to call us, because there could be a detail that's different from yours than someone else's. But I think it's good. Like Chelsea, I had some notes. She had someone that she just wrote about, a client of hers who was on Cobra, which we talked about earlier, right? So this fellow's on Cobra, paying $800 a month. Now he reaches open enrollment, so he can leave Cobra during a time of open enrollment.
We were talking about that during the first hour if somebody's just tuning in.
Yeah, so this fits right in with the question that that you asked and what we were on. Fella's in Cobra, paying $800 a month. Now he reaches open enrollment. Can he leave Cobra during an open enrollment? Yes, he can, for whatever reason he wants, because it's an open enrollment. And he had limited income. He was on some expensive medications, and Chelsea ended up finding a plan. I know she said it was less than $10 a month, and had a very low max out of pocket. And for this individual, this was her Feel Good Friday, and it truly makes us feel good when we can take someone who's struggling to pay an $800 a month insurance premium, and we can find them very good coverage for under $10 a month. I mean, that is a good feeling. And Chelsea's the newest agent down there. So this stuff to me, I mean, I've been doing it 4 years. I'm sure Aaron's been doing it for 16 years? I'll bet you he's just as excited today to do that for someone than he would have been 16 years ago.
Yeah, always nice no matter what the circumstances,
Yeah.
when you can help somebody out, save the money, and really impact them in a positive way long term.
Yep. Then we had two other that were another one from Chelsea and one from Aaron, both Feel Good Fridays, similar but not the exact same thing. Chelsea having a client who had significant health issues, and guess what she was going to do? I'm going to change my plan because my friend said their plan is good.
Okay.
Right?
Always going by the friend's suggestion.
Yeah, the friend said theirs was good. She was in having the health issues and was considering switching. And Aaron said it a number of times. I've said it. What she wanted to switch to, I'll just say it this way. What her friends had was something that if Chelsea had enrolled her in, would have paid a very nice commission. Okay? So you literally have somebody coming to you, and we've all been there. I'm going to use the word begging, but basically
saying like, hey, I got a lot of money for you.
Yeah, I'm asking you to help me choose a plan that's going to pay you a good commission.
Yeah.
And you know what Chelsea told her? You would be making a very big mistake, and I won't do it for you, and you shouldn't do it. And boom, the woman is obviously
and it just shows how much more honest you are than a lot of the other reps that are out there from other companies, especially the ones you see on TV or that you might end up getting calls from all the time if you maybe made an initial inquiry about something where they just won't leave you alone. You guys are out there to help people, not only just to make a buck.
Yeah, I mean, it's refreshing to me. I mean, it aligns with my personal beliefs, of course, and Aaron just will never let us put making a commission above giving the best advice and the most helpful advice. I mean, if I think about it sometimes when I've been in situations like that, and I've literally talked somebody out of something that they asked me to do for them that would have paid me, and I knew it wasn't the right thing, and it's very refreshing. And then I think how glad and how fortunate I am to be working for somewhere where, and I'll tell people this, I'm like, there's no board in the back room, with all of our names on it, where we got to put a little mark every time we sell a certain type of policy. That doesn't exist here. You know what I mean? We give unbiased information, and we just try to look out for your best interest. So so what was Chelsea's? Chelsea was, she had the right coverage, but was asking to be changed. Okay. To which Chelsea said, no, you shouldn't switch.
No.
Then Artrell had written one, similar but different. Artrell's was that the fella had already enrolled in a plan that wasn't, in our opinion, the kind of coverage he should have had. Already in it, comes in, and luckily for him, Artrell said, you're in an open enrollment for another type of coverage, which would suit you way better, and switched them to that coverage. So again, similar situation but different, but both of them situations where we just had the opportunity to put somebody on a path that we feel was a lot better than the one that they were on.
And along those same lines, we're probably in a period right now where after open enrollment occurred and you kind of got into the new year, and maybe you were somebody that unfortunately is not a client of the health insurance store, maybe got bad information or bad advice from somebody, and you maybe were scammed by an agent, you do have an opportunity, I would think, in January to still make a change if you were given incorrect information.
Yeah, it's quite possible. There are some enrollment periods that we're not technically supposed to. I guess they consider them they're there, but ones that we don't advertise, so we don't hear about these things. So yeah, so definitely there are possibilities for people that feel that they may have made a bad decision to still make an appointment, so that we can give you, again, candid, no restrictions on what we can say at that point. If you're requesting the appointment, then obviously we can tell you everything we would want to tell you, which is different than being on the radio sometimes where we can't.
Yes.
So the encouragement there clearly is that anybody who doesn't feel that they're on the right plan, even if we end up having to table it and say, you know what, nothing we can do right now, but here's going to be your first opportunity. Here's my card. Let's keep in touch and fix it as soon as we can. So it could be one of the two, but don't assume unless you've talked to us that there's nothing that can be done, because quite honestly, a lot of times there are things that can be done.
And again, if you want to call the health insurance store in Connellsville and talk to Tony or another agent, 724-603-3403. That's 724-603-3403. And you also have an office in Forest Hills. You mentioned Chelsea working for that office as well. So you could basically serve most of southwestern Pennsylvania.
Yep. So shout out to Forest Hills down there, Bonnie and Alicia and Chelsea. I guess kind of like Charlie's Angels. Artrell and Aaron used to go down there a lot and work.
Okay.
And then when Artrell and I came on board, there was a period of time where he and I they had an empty space, and so Artrell and I were sharing that desk and going back and forth. And now I guess I haven't been down since Chelsea was hired full-time, but I'm assuming that's the desk that she now occupies. It was nice. I enjoyed going down there. The client, different demographic, different clientele.
Yeah,
but I'm glad Chelsea's got that seat now, and these three women are just killing it down there. They do a great job.
I don't know if I ever told you, I actually grew up in Forest Hills, so I know that whole area pretty well down there. And I think you guys are right off Ardmore Boulevard.
Yeah, that's the area that my daughter works for the University of Pittsburgh, right out of Bakery Square.
Yep.
And that's the area that kind of somewhere down there is where we're looking at a potential for her to possibly buy a house. So
yeah, certainly a nice neighborhood. And if you happen to maybe have some family even up in that area as well, even if you live down here and might have parents or siblings or someone else that live in that area and they want to make sure they have the right coverage, again, you can call the health insurance store and pop on in Forest Hills as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we usually, if someone's calling, I think the people that schedule the appointments, 412 doesn't necessarily mean you live in Pittsburgh, but I think when they see the 412 or if they're gathering information and giving the address, I hear the ladies who do scheduling all the time. We'll just come right out and ask you. We have an office in Forest Hills, we have an office in Connellsville. Do you have a preference? Is one more convenient? If you're doing an office visit, we're going to try to make it as convenient for you. The best thing is the ones from North Huntington.
Yeah.
Because
they sit right in between, right?
We'll take them in Connellsville. Send them those. We're just as close. Now,
we actually had a caller, I think, on the last show I did with Aaron that was listening online or watching our show online that was a client from somewhere near Pittsburgh, and they went to your Forest Hills location.
Yeah, so there's trust me, there's enough people out there calling. We don't fight, we don't squabble. Yeah. They're busy, we're busy. We're all just happy to have a great job.
Just under 5 minutes left. I know you want to touch on life insurance as well real quick. That's something that is very important and something you guys also do with the health insurance store.
Yes, we won't go too deep just because of the time restrictions, but a couple of key points I want to make. Obviously, there's a couple of main types of insurance. If we were to categorize them, there's different reasons why people would be applying for insurance. We can get into that, but again, it might be better saved for a different day. I think what I'll say instead is if you were listening at the end of the first hour, I apologize, my cell phone rang. Okay. One of the main things I like to explain, I've had a lot of people come in and wanted quotes on life insurance, and they were a little gun shy, Brian. And the reason they were gun shy is they'd already tried to get some information, by going to the internet. And anything you've ever done on the internet, obviously, I personally usually have to give just a little bit of information, more information than I really want to give. And the reason the person on the other end wants that is so obviously they can call you and, I get it.
Yep.
It's fine. But basically all I wanted was the information, right? I wanted you made it look like I could come here and in 2 minutes get a quote. And instead, now you've got
you might
my
be
cell
hounded
phone.
for life.
Right. Now you've got my cell phone. Now you've got my email. And I never did get my quote because now what's going to happen? So I actually did that over the weekend after having taken my daughter to see her first property and kicking things, a little bit into high gear on that front. I saw a property and I had a particular question about it. I didn't want to reach out to the realtor that we're working with, so I just figured, I saw it on a particular website. I'll send an email to them and let them answer my question. And
ended up being a mistake. Huh?
Well, I won't call it a mistake yet, but the phone call that I got, and I apologize for at the end of the first segment, was the fact that I've had 8 phone calls since then from that same number, and I know it is a person who is, trying to establish a relationship with me that I don't really need or want. I got the answer to my question, and that's all I wanted. And the same thing happens too. Folks that have come in, I've actually had people tell me that they filled out information and literally had someone knocking on their door the next day, applying for a particular type of something we call final expense, small whole life policy. I do a lot of them, actually. I like doing them. And
really good for somebody that might be, getting up there and wanting to make sure that their, passing away is not going to be a financial burden to somebody else.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, obviously we deal with a lot of senior citizens. So these are people that are anywhere between 65 and 75, maybe even a couple of years, 66 or 76, 77. And they just want 10, 15,000, maybe. The lowest I think I ever did is 3. And the most I typically do that policy for is 25,000. Just a small whole life permanent policy.
And they're generally inexpensive, I would think, as well.
Well, if they're cheaper when you're young, if you're doing it at age 77, I wouldn't necessarily say they're expensive. But I've learned that no matter what I think, I'm running the quote. What's your name, date of birth? So I'm about to share my screen and show you what the cost is, and then I'll usually say something dumb like, "Well, this, that's, I think it looks pretty," and that's the person, the one that I think was going to be pleased is the one that says, "Oh, that's way too much money. What can we do?" And then the ones that I'm sometimes like, I'm afraid to throw my screen around. They're like, "Oh, is that all that?" So I don't know.
You're done guessing, right?
I'm no good at poker. I just quote it. But the nice thing is you're doing it with anonymity.
Yeah.
You're not going to be cross-sold. No one's going to call you. You and I are having a conversation. I'm going to give you the quote. I'm going to tell you real easy. Here's one of 3 possible outcomes. And if you're interested, we'll pursue it, and if you're not, we'll remain friends. Simple as that.
Well, Tony, enjoyed it as always. The 2 hours always goes by quick. I think you're going to be back in with us at least one of the shows in February.
Yeah, I think I've got the first one for sure.
Okay.
Which would be it's not necessarily 2 weeks because it'll be the first Monday, right? It might
be 3
so
we might get a week off depending how the calendar falls. I haven't even looked at that yet.
First Monday of February, I guess. I'll be back.
Well, we'll talk with you then, Tony. Again, great information. Tony DiRoma from the Health Insurance Store in Connellsville, 724-603-3403. Coming up on 3 o'clock here on WMBS Uniontown.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Michael Wallace. Donald J. Trump has taken the oath of office, becoming the 47th president of the United States.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
CBS's Linda Kenyon says Trump's inaugural address touched on many familiar themes.
The president says he's back.
I return to the presidency confident and optimistic.